Before we start today's roundtable, I want to give special thanks to Checkster, our group sponsor. Checkster has become well known in the recruiting industry by providing a platform that easily captures reference checks in the hiring process. I myself have been a customer of theirs for years. I use a reference checking tool for all of my new hires. However, Checkster has now released a new product suite called Insights. This new product suite is really what has excited me to have Checkster as the group sponsor. With Insights, the Checkster platform now covers employees from cradle to grave and not just reference checking, starting when they apply, going to offer, through onboarding, then covering their work at your company, and then to the end with exit interviews. It's an easy to use, easy to understand way of giving and getting feedback from your peers. Checkster's simple goal: to build more productive and passionate teams. Now, if this concept of getting insights from your peers regarding your work sounds familiar, it should, because that's the simple goal of this group: connecting, communicating, collaborating. Support me, support the group. Follow the link below, recruiting.org/Checkster. This will take you to a landing page to sign up for a quick demo. If you are just thinking about automating your reference checking process, it'll be well worth your time. But I encourage you to check out the full Insights suite. I'd love to find out if you feel the way I feel about it. Now let's get to today's roundtable. All right, let's jump right into it. Thank you everybody for attending episode 74 in Let's Talk Recruiting, where peer practitioners in the TA profession all get together, talk about various topics that we all hit pretty much on a day-to-day. And the topic for today is really about that day-to-day. Tools and tips to be a more efficient recruiter throughout the day. I think if recruiters had more time in the day, they'd be able to do everything perfect, like everybody says we should be doing for this, that, and the other, but it all seems to come down to not having enough time in the day. So subsequently, that time management. So today I'm going to be talking about ways to try and get through your day in a more efficient manner. With us, we have Mark Wolin. Mark, did I get that last name right?
Close, yeah, Mark Wallen.
Wallen's all right. Out of Dallas. Kara Hughes out of Phoenix. Am I getting better, Kara?
Nope, Sean, you were frozen.
All right. Glenn Marani out of New York City, and Christine Wish may be joining us. I'll try and track her down. She is out of Minneapolis. So with that said, Mark, if it's okay, I'm going to jump over to you to kind of start off the conversation.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Mark Wallen. I work at SiriusXM in Pandora. I've been here, it'll be 10 years in January. Focus on technical recruiting, really anything that touches tech across the enterprise. And so mainly software engineering and positions around the SDLC. So in addition to my individual contributor responsibilities, I also manage a small team of 4 distributed across the former SXM side of what we do. So I'm pretty involved both in the weeds as well as from a leadership perspective at the company. And so I think to lead off, I think this is a popular topic based on initial responses. Is I think that in order to be efficient, really time and calendar blocking is very important. It's something where personally I like to keep my core hours between 10 and 4 Central available for any screening calls or any other dialogue that I might have with other managers. I use the 4 to 5 p.m. time period in order to catch up on email as well as plan my next day. And then because some candidates don't have availability during the core hours that I list, I try to keep some screening calls between 5 and 6 as well, because I'm willing to work a little bit later hours. And so obviously just based on your personal preferences and working style, I think calendar blocking is important, not only from a screening and work catch-up standpoint, but honestly tied to your sanity as well, because as you're aware, many recruiters are inundated with recs, maybe not as much the last couple months, but in a busy season, it's something where you can kind of lose track of tasks. So I do a lot of task tracking as well throughout the day in my calendar blocking.
Are you color coding your blocking?
I do color code. My daily calendar is full of blues, yellows, greens, and various colors. And I mean, honestly, most of that viewpoint comes back from my Robert Half days before I came out here 10 years ago.
So I'm going to get a little granular on you, and for other panelists, I'm assuming a lot of people block too. Are you color coding or prioritizing by rec, by manager, by, let's say you got a hiring manager who's at the VP level, so he or she gets a color or anything like that, or is it just sort of generic colors to help you do that?
So
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in. I color code by whether it's phone interview, in-person interview, if the manager's going to be involved. I mean, I try to track it more by process than by rec. But that's me, and I see that Chiara wants to jump into.
Mine's by internal, external candidate, internal function. Yeah, if mine's an internal function, it's one color. If it's an interview I've booked for somebody else, if it's internal interview for me, it's one color. If it's an internal interview I've booked for somebody else, but I have to watch it because I don't trust that person, it's another color. If it's an external something event I've done, it's another color. If it's a vendor meeting I have to have external, it's another color. So yeah, there's internal colors, external colors. If I'm participating one color, if somebody else is participating another color. Yep.
Can we filter by colors? Like, hey, only show me the reds or only show me the greens?
Well, we use
I believe
G
so.
Suite.
I believe Office would let you do that as well. Outlook, I mean.
I don't know if G Suite will allow you to actually.
With G Suite and Google Calendar, I've seen where they create a second calendar because you can filter by calendar.
Yeah.
It's just essentially a color.
Yeah, you can do it by, you can do it by calendar, but I don't think you can do it within a calendar.
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
Test that out.
Do we manage within those buckets? Are we managing tasks within that blocked time? I'll give you an example of what I mean. I didn't necessarily do it, but I saw a recruiter do it. If they had 8 tasks to do, it went in that blocked time. Let's say they did 5 of them, so they had 3 left. He'd copy and paste and go into that next block time for getting these types of tasks done. So he's basically moving his tasks that he needed to do along the day. Does anybody do anything similar like that around getting tasks?
Otherwise, I drop balls if I don't. I mean, I like to click off on the to-dos and what has been done and track what's been done because as we all know, we talk with so many people. We're going to forget, well, did I do that? Did I follow up with this person? Did I do what I said I was going to do? And that's, really communication, any tools that are going to help us do that are going to be extremely helpful as things, I mean, again, some of us aren't that busy right now, but it gets busy, and that's my tip.
Yeah, anytime I have a to-do, I make sure to put an immediate calendar appointment as a reminder. So that way I can focus on the stuff I have planned for that day. And it's just a reminder I will never forget as soon as I have that. So as long as I've got it somewhere on my calendar, I know I don't have to think about it again until that pops up.
Same.
Do you do that for like smaller tests? Let's say something takes 20 minutes to do. Are you doing it for like a 20-minute?
I do it for everything. That way I can concentrate on my task for that day. If there's something that's future oriented, I could worry about it on that day.
Well, someone put in the chat that they use Trello for to-dos, and we'll use like Trello or Rike. We use Rike at Carvana a lot as well for like when it goes past Trello but doesn't quite reach a project, we use Rike in the center. I used to do that, but what I noticed was I was doing my whole work day, and then my to-do list became a whole nother work day. So it was now becoming a 20-hour work day. And I'm not, that's not going to work for me personally for my private life. So I started blocking my time and saying like from 4 to 5 p.m. is to do tasks. And then I would actually put a link to my Trello or whatever in that block time. So I could, and then I would link to those tasks for an hour so someone wouldn't book over my time. Because if I didn't block my time off on the calendar, someone would book over it. And then now I'm booked till 5:30, 6 o'clock p.m. And then I still have a whole task list. So it's still accounting for the actual physical time that you need to do. Because then you'll feel overwhelmed. And then once you start to feel that buried feeling, then you're mentally defeated, not just like chronologically defeated.
Let me ask you this about block time. This is for all panelists, of course. If you got a time, it's blocked, you're in that time and you're doing whatever you need to be doing, and the phone rings, are we answering calls during block time?
Depends on if that ring has a C in front of the title.
Agreed. It
That
depends
says
on the
Ernie
story.
Garcia, Dan
It's-
Gill, or
Yeah.
anybody has a C in front of it for chief something. Yep.
Yeah, most calls I'll let go, but you're right. She's right. I mean, if I know it's important, I'll answer it, because otherwise then it throws, you can't. That's why even when I recruit for candidates too, much like Mark does, in addition to manage people. I don't have people randomly calling me up and I answer the phone, because I always block time ahead of time to interview people. I can't do that. It would just mess up my entire day to take random calls in. So.
Thank God for caller ID.
Yeah.
And from an in-office perspective, if you have a door, closing the door and putting a note on your door is very important as well. So for that block time, you don't get those interruptions, much like a call that's spur of the moment.
I used to feel guilty about blocking my calendar time, like to do stuff. I don't feel guilty anymore about it. If you don't block your time to actually do your tasks, you'll just get buried.
Great.
Kara, do you want to jump over your items?
Sure. So just for two reasons, you asked us to do it. And second, you did freeze at the time. I'm Kiata Hughes. I'm head of corporate and technical recruiting at Carvana, a used car company in Phoenix, an online used car company in Phoenix. Just to piggyback a little bit on what Mark said, it's not just about blocking the time, which I think is the overall theme. I mean, that's what's really important. It's also prioritization within the blocking, right? So it's not just blocking the time, it's also making sure you stay on task for the priority of what needs to get done. So please make sure that you're, and I tell the recruiters on my team to do this all the time. Please spend your first 15 to 20 minutes in the morning going through your recs. Like, it doesn't matter what else you do, clean out your recs. Make sure and it's also for the candidate experience, make sure candidates aren't hanging out in your rec for days and days and days and days. I will like lose my shit if candidates are sitting in a rec forever, because it's a crappy candidate experience. So obviously first thing, clean like recs. Second, obviously check for fires. Like if you're supposed to have people interviewing and they've canceled or something happens, that creates a ripple effect for everybody's interview problem that day. So clean out your recs, make sure interviews are happening for the hiring managers, make sure they know they're supposed to be interviewing people haven't canceled, all that, like, admin cleanup stuff. Chase hiring managers for feedback, like that. Just basically prioritize, keep the candidates warm, rec cleanup, scorecards, and we use Greenhouse. Scorecard review, and then intake calls, because I'm a big fan of the intake call for new recs and making sure that sets the tone. And I also, I'm a big preacher that, well, we're not in the office, but when we were, I also tell my recruiters that in addition to cleaning out your recs, your other priority literally is after you clean out your recs, I want everybody to shut down and get out of your seat and walk around to your hiring managers and, shake hands and kiss babies, because you're running for mayor and that's your client. Like,
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. You nailed it. Perfect.
That's your client. Kiss their ass, be friends, get to know them, like walk around, get that, because one day you're going to screw up, because everybody screws up. I just did it like 12 hours ago.
Well, not only that, but it's being proactive with your customer.
Yep.
It's maybe they didn't have a chance, or they just had someone resign. I mean, you're ahead of it then, and it does make you more accessible to them, and much more approachable. So 100%.
Yeah. Recruiting is an art and a science. The science is the analytics, and the science is the things that we have to get done and everything we're talking about. But the art of it is the humanity of it. And if you build street cred and like humanity with your client, you get to know each other better. And when you need something from them, because you will, you can always tap them on the shoulder and be like, dude, you're killing me. Like, I need something from you. You need something from me. They'll give you a little grace if you're ever late and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so yes. So prioritization, clean out your recs, shake hands, kiss babies. And then everything else that you need to do to push things forward in an interview process, because it's still about getting people hired. So time blocking and prioritization.
So, Kiara, around cleaning out your recs, typically speaking, are we talking hour, 3 hours, all morning?
Well, if you stay on top of it, it shouldn't take more than like 30 minutes. But again, it depends on your rec load. Like, you know, Carvana, it's different because like there's like engineering recs, which we have greenfield recs, and like it's front end, back end, full stack, senior software engineer, right? So like that's 4 basic recs to satisfy. Well, Carvana's on our crazy busy time right now, so we're hiring an obscene amount of people for engineering. So that might take a little while, but like that's one chunk. But then there's also the customer care recs, and we're hiring 300 people in customer care. So that might take an hour to go through those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, either whether it's every day or every other day, if you're not cleaning your recs, yeah, you're going to get behind and it's going to take more time. If you're managing it daily, it's much easier to keep up with that candidate volume.
Totally.
And once you get behind, you get further behind. It doesn't get better, right? So that's critical. Yeah.
We also make our hiring managers engage. Like when we get to these points, like when we're at our crazy surge times, we're like, listen, you guys want people hired, we're drowning, go into greenhouse and check out the people yourself. Like you can click a button and move people forward to the first level, which is the screen 1 by the recruiters. You move them forward. When we check them tomorrow, we know that if you've moved them to the screen, you need a recruiter screen, because everybody at Carvana gets a culture, like a first level recruiter screen, or they don't get interviewed. So if you are bummed that we're taking too long, your fingers aren't broken, you can go do it yourself.
But sort of around the concept around cleaning out your recs, what I used to do, and to full disclosure, I've been recruiting operations for years now, but when I was working the desk, I'd always focus on the rec itself. I'd go from one rec to the next, right, to kind of clean it. With the emails and even voice messages and stuff like that, I would always put the rec ID, like it was an email, the rec ID would be in the subject line. If it was a meeting, the rec ID would be in the title line. So then when I wanted to search or to make sure I looked in my inbox for all of those communications around a certain rec, I could just search by that rec ID. Then my list would come up, just work through it. Does anybody do any like tricks, getting a little granular around being able to clean out your recs, or exactly how you're doing that to get through them the quickest and easiest? Nope.
Not to that level. I think it's just more for me. It's going through each of my recs during that allotted time, and so clicking from one rec to the other. And again, sometimes maybe there's only a couple of applicants for one, and then there's many more for others. And so I don't get as granular that, hey, I checked this rec at this time. It's more about just in bulk at that time.
So what I typically do, again, in tracking progress on my recs, is I do have not just my automated tools, but a daily calendar, and I keep notes so that I know which ones I've done, which ones, are needing attention, and so on and so forth. Because automation is great to a point, but I'm very visual as well, and there are a lot of interruptions. There are phone calls and texts and emails and people stopping by, or meetings, and so I just take advantage of any and all tools at my disposal.
I always try to find ways to go back and find information. That's why I left a voice message, and always be an ID number so they could give it back to me and things like that. Excellent. Glenn, how about yourself? Let's jump over to you.
Yeah, one of the things I do is pretty interesting. Aside from calendars and to-do lists, I always, every day, actually the night before, this has worked for me for years, and it's really not being old school or anything, but if I have things I need to get done the next day, I actually write them down. I have a log I keep. I really need to keep that, regardless of what you have on your task list. I need to make sure that I get those tasks done in a given day. That's worked for me. And I always prepare the night before what I need to do. So that's one thing I do. Yeah, the interesting thing about even having a task list and calendars is, in recruiting, or even if you're a manager, things come up during the day. Like, for instance, you may not have it on your task list at all, and all of a sudden you find out from a hiring manager, we're going to make an offer to a candidate. Well, you're not going to wait till the next day to call the candidate and say, hey, an offer's coming, right? So that, you have to be prepared to, adjust things during the day based on, again, sense of urgency and priority. It's all based on, to me, it's all based on priority. And you have to, a lot of times you have to figure out what that priority is based on who you're dealing with, especially, if it's a hiring manager, if it's a candidate. You just have to, that's something that it's a gut feel too. And over time how you need to prioritize things. But the one thing that is really important that I, to a fault, do sometimes, not recently, but early on in my recruiting career, was overbook myself. Meaning, if I'm going to speak with a candidate and I have 30 minutes, I would book a meeting right after that with the next candidate. Can't do that. You need time to take in all that information. And I know some people are good at actually typing while they're listening to a candidate. I can't do that. I take notes, but to refresh that conversation, if you don't have it fresh in your mind and you wait till the end of the day to do that, it's not good. So while you have everything fresh in your mind, you take the notes and recap the conversation in your mind. And so you have to leave, even when hiring managers, and I book interviews with hiring managers and there's a sense of urgency, they always leave at least 15 to 30 minutes in between the interview schedules for themselves. So they can do the same, they basically do the same thing. So they can recap what they've done with the candidate and record their notes and information. So that to me is extremely important. And it's interesting. I think Mark talked about closing your door and putting a note on it. Way back in the days when I was on the IT side, I had a manager that I worked for, and I was a developer at the time. And I would go to his office and he wasn't there. What he would do is when he really needed to concentrate on something, he would actually book a conference room, and nobody could find him. Because even when I'm in the office, when I had 4 or 5 recruiters working for me and they were senior level recruiters, I have an open door policy basically. They come in and ask, sometimes they're asking questions, they know the answer. It's just they want me to hear it. They want to bounce it off me, but there's so many interruptions, and then you can't get your own tasks done. So that's something that I've learned to do. Obviously, I don't need to do that now, working from home, but that's very, very effective sometimes, especially if you work in a bigger office location where you can go and basically hide. Yeah. So
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Glenn, I call it. Oh, go ahead, Kiara.
Well, one of the things that's pretty, we do type while we talk, especially for taking the notes when you're interviewing a candidate. We actually prescribe a template, a screening template when you're interviewing candidates, et cetera. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, to make sure that we capture all of the information that we need so candidates are being compared apples to apples. 2, in light of recent events, especially, to make sure that it's an objective interview experience with no unconscious bias. And 3, because when you're typing all those notes, once you're done that, you copy and paste it, it becomes your scorecard. So if we're ever audited, there's proof that every candidate was asked the exact same questions. And then it's expedient. You're just typing as people are talking, or if you're taking the notes, you're typing it, you put it in again. That way, while they're talking, you're typing, it goes into Greenhouse or your ATS, it becomes your scorecard. Everything's accounted for. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And then again, the objective, non-biased comments. And we actually reviewed every template and we've made a prescribed template for talent acquisition, so that we're very sure that there are no bias questions being asked, with no biased language, etc.
Yeah, we actually have template questions based on the job, and they're obviously different. Some of them are the same, right? If they're certain situational questions, but we have templates as well. So do you have different templates for each job? Then you ask different questions? Yeah, like from a technical skill, like your back-end developers, front-end developers, other things, right? There's some variation there, right? So
yeah, just the thing that's uniform is the beginning and then the end. Like the beginning part and some of the questions we ask, like if you weren't going to do this job, what would you do instead? One of my favorite questions when I'm interviewing recruiters is what would make you a better recruiter? It's one of my favorite questions to ask. So that one goes on there. And then at the bottom, of course, what are your motivators? And desired compensation we ask, not what are you making?
You can't.
Desired? No, you can't ask that anymore.
Can't ask that, right?
Never ask that. I never want to, especially because the women making less money situation. Like, what is your desired comp? So those are always the last two questions, of course. And then I do a whole training on salary negotiation, and we do what is your what is the happy dance down the street number? Like, what number, if I paid you this number, you'd name your next kid Kiata? What is the will accept number, and what's the hell no, don't talk to me, walk away number? So we actually write it out till the recruiters get comfortable with it.
Let me ask a question around the feedback or templates or what have you.
Okay.
Is for the hiring team, it's now on the recruiter's desk to make sure that all that feedback is now into the system, if it's in the system or template. Are you using tools that kind of aid in making sure a task assigned to a hiring manager, such as feedback, is into the system? Or is it up to the recruiter? Oh, that's another thing I have to go do and track down feedback. Does that make sense?
What is it?
Yeah, we have that as an attachment in our candidate record, basically, that the hiring manager will see, and it's labeled as what, what the file name's labeled as what it is, like, template, candidate interview feedback from recruiter or whatever. Yeah. So it's all accessible in the system to the hiring managers.
Right. I'm with you on that. But so now the hiring managers have to complete that, right? Is it on the recruiter now to make sure that has been completed by the managers and just another task back on our desk to manage through? Is that accurate?
Yeah, we don't have a process flow that's automated, right? And you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it is. It's unfortunately with the tool we use. Yeah.
One of
Reminder.
the things I suggest, and whether it's in your strategy session with the manager, many of these managers are not used to these tools. They don't live in them like we do. So they may not check them every day. They may not know to check them. So I just kind of send them a reminder at 2 seconds, send a text, send an email. Hey, I forwarded a couple of things to you. Would you please check it out? That just makes their job easier. Again, you're their partner. So
yeah,
some of it's training and some of it's just,
It's interesting. Along the same lines, I just wanted to mention that I think it's important. Some of our hiring managers, they actually give me blocks of time ahead of time for candidate interviews and just say, book it. If I need to cancel it, I'll let you know. But they give me times, because if they don't, it just becomes harder to track them down, because again, they're so busy during the day. So that's worked very well for me in the past and my team. So
and I was gonna suggest, kind of along Glenn's lines here, is one of my topics was that, again, communicate. If you're having trouble getting a hold of a manager, send out a calendar invite. Say, hey, I need to chat with you for 15 minutes. That way, I mean, it just is really frustrating to everybody. And so calendaring, again, just a suggestion.
Yeah, as a part of interview feedback, it's something where I do ongoing trainings with any hiring managers, as well as people that are a part of the interview panels, as far as what we expect in feedback, their line of questioning, and timely feedback. And if they don't adhere to those guidelines, they don't get to interview. And so it's something where I've been here so long, I think I carry a little bit of weight when it comes to how timely they are, and they know I'm going to come after them if they don't provide that timely feedback.
Yep, we're doing an interview training right now. Every 6 months we do an actual interview refresher training. Like, we have a whole deck on interview training, and one of them, and I sit there through it. I don't even teach the training except for like a little chunk in the middle, and I like literally pop in. I go, hey, scorecards. If you don't fill them out, we don't hire people for you, and you're out. If you don't fill out a scorecard, we can't benchmark, and that means you don't care. So if you don't care, we don't care. You have to do your part.
I think the scorecard or any feedback is important to provide them a guide that's succinct. It gives you what you need to provide adequate feedback to the candidate, but at the same time, it's not this massive form that they feel that they have to fill out and takes up much of their day.
And we do, sorry, my dogs really want to get involved. We do provide guidelines on that feedback too. Like, there's thumbs up, thumbs down in Greenhouse, but also like, we do the do's and don'ts, like don't do the protected classes, right? But the do's, like give an opinion, and also will this person, and then we do a whole section on our core values. Like, we list out our 7 core values and then give like a descriptor on examples of how they would meet the core values. And then we also say, will this person bring a unique, diverse awesome, like new experience to Carvana? Like, will they bring a richer vibe to your team? And then explain how.
Excellent point, Kiera. Glenn, I want to circle back on you brought up prioritizing and talk about planning, right? So I think a lot of things that we're talking about falls into bucketing and scheduling your calendar, prioritizing what you're going to do. You talked about planning ahead. So you sound like the person that plans for tomorrow, today. Back here.
Sorry, guys, I have to hop.
Oh, no worries.
It's been a pleasure. You guys are amazing. Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Glenn, do you recommend planning for tomorrow today, or planning for today the first thing at the start of the day? You know what I mean?
No, I like to plan for tomorrow today, definitely. So it's fresh, everything's fresh in your mind. And then when I start my day, I don't have to think about what I really need to do, what's important for me that day. You know what I mean? And then you're spending time, and then you kind of, and it just, to me, if I've done that, it happens sometimes, right? You just don't have time to plan for the next day, but I just feel I'm much less productive, and I don't get as much done. One of the things I wanted to mention, using all the technology is great, the to-do list, notes, and all that, but it's interesting. Somebody told me a long time ago, what I do is I keep and this is a lot before, obviously, computer technology got much more involved in everybody's lives, but what they said is, if I put the tasks that I really need to do down in my logbook, my sheet of paper, and if I don't get them done, I have to write them down the next day. And what happens is you get tired of writing that task down the day after day. You want to get it off your plate. It's almost like a motivation. If you just see it, it's a little different, and it affects me a lot differently if I have it written down, or if I have to physically write it and think about it, as opposed to just moving it from my calendar to another time, right? It's just a little more, it all falls back to that sense of urgency in a way. Yeah. So it's just something that's worked for me. Also, it's pretty important, so.
Yeah, I'm on that same page. I like to plan for tomorrow today rather than start my day off planning for that day. Because to your point, it's fresh in your head. You go to bed knowing what you got to do tomorrow. You wake up knowing what I got to do. It's just easier for the mind. I know I think most people are like that, but I think some people do. I don't have time to do it. I got to go do this event, personal event, so they got to leave for the day. A question for everybody around kind of task management and what have you. Are we all, when it comes to mobile phones, do we have a work phone and a personal phone, or are we all doing it on one phone? Just out of curiosity.
One phone.
One?
Yeah, I've got one phone. We're allowed a business phone. I just haven't asked for it yet, even though we've been at home now for about 7 months. But I know most people have two phones in the teams that have worked from home for a lot longer.
So what I do at work is I have my calls at work on my work phone forwarded to my cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I really just use one phone. And I think it goes back to my days when I worked on the IT side, on the infrastructure side, and having that sense of urgency. It's just that you have to, I just feel the communication, especially with candidates or whoever it may be. I can't say, it's hard for me to separate that and have a separate phone for that. Yeah, it's my cell phone's my main contact number actually right now.
Yeah, just curious with that, because I've seen people go, seems to be a flip of a coin one way or the other in my experiences. But I wouldn't want to carry around two phones myself. No. So I'm on one phone.
Hey, Sean, I'd like to go back to that topic we were on before you brought up the phones, about not having time to plan your next day. Even if you don't have time to write it down or put it in your calendar, what I do is I do voice memos to myself and just send it. And that way I've done the planning, but I maybe didn't have time to write it down, but at least it's top ahead and it's downloaded, so to speak, because otherwise I'm not going to remember for tomorrow. And that is just, again, if you're running out of time or power outage, right? There's a backup plan so that I don't forget what I need to get done as far as planning.
I email myself, believe it or not. This morning, 4
Right.
o'clock in the morning, I woke up and thought of something. I emailed myself.
Exactly. I've been there, done that.
Christine, do you want to jump into your items?
I don't really have a lot that we haven't covered.
Okay.
Again, one of the things Ciara covered was, making people draw that line in the sand after they've done their first few things for the day and go visit with your hiring managers. Get get that FaceTime. Go see the rest of the team. I mean, is anyone having challenges? Again, it's that personal touch. Can I help you today? What do you need? Or I need help. And just making it, part of your day instead of just closing yourself off, because otherwise you are in your cubby and you are doing your thing, and all of a sudden it's 6 o'clock and everyone's gone home and no one's done that personal thing. So that was just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a rule of thumb that if the average recruiter does something, I do the opposite. And so it's mainly because we're all aware of the reputation that some recruiters have, and we hear it from candidates all the time about the experience they have. It's the same with hiring managers. If you don't take time to learn about what they're doing, what their function is, you're not going to have that same rapport. They're not going to divulge as much information to you as you would like to know. And the same with candidates, especially LinkedIn messages, anything. Be
100%.
targeted. Don't be that average recruiter that just goes into immediate job description cell and attach a description. You're not going to stand out.
Yeah, I think another important thing too is in the middle of a requirement, things change sometimes, right? So you may have hired the same, say, .NET developer for a manager, and all of a sudden, maybe the manager's interviewed a couple of people and is not totally sure. And, things, sometimes their requirement changes or their mindset changes on what they're looking for. And if you don't have those interim conversations, you're going down spending all your time on, one requirement or one type of person you think the client's looking for. It changes over time, nothing's static. So that's why it's important, I think, to have that continual conversation with the hiring manager.
Yeah. One last point on task management. I was deciding whether to bring this up. This is about me or not. This goes back from my days of consulting, where at one time I could have 3 clients and they would, hey, you have to work on our computers. So I'd have to work off of 3 different computers and then a work computer. Does anybody use index cards for task management?
My writing's terrible. It wouldn't work for me.
Oh, mine's bad too. But I do it with color coding. So I got into the habit where I had to collect different requests from different places, and a company would have a different color. So now I just use like a subject as a color, and I write my tasks on my note card because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And for my dailies, I can just sort my cards really quick. This is my order of the day. Once it's done, I throw it away or what have you. But I don't know if it's just old school or what, but having that.
What's important is finding the mechanism that works for you. There's no standard template that's going to work for everyone. And so I see Audrey put in here the Post-it notes. I used to do a lot of Post-it notes all over the screen. And then I started living off my calendar more. And so I found it's more efficient for me to operate that way. It's really just finding what works for you, how you don't forget, and you can keep up with your daily tasks.
Excellent. Yeah,
I think the main thing is not to forget, right? So as soon as something happens that's new, you have to record it somewhere, wherever it's, that's the most important thing. Otherwise, with all the different things that go on during a day, it's so easy just to forget something if you don't write it down somewhere, right?
Yep, totally agree. That's where note cards come into play. Easy to remember. Again, I was on a plane one time and I was cleaning them out, and an older gentleman said to me, "Finally, somebody knows how to do it right." And he was in his 70s. I'm like, oh my God, was that telling me I'm a little bit behind the times or what have you?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Yeah, one other last point, Glenn, your relocation, the boss who went to a conference room, I call that relocating with purpose. This is going back to the consulting days when I did all my work from home and the world was open. My second office was Panera Bread because they had free coffee refills and free Wi-Fi. But when I went there, I knew what I was doing. I was just cleaning my inbox. When I was done, I left the place. So I call that relocating with purpose. And you could only do that task when you went there. And they have nice sandwiches.
No different today than blocking out time at home, right? On your calendar. Same thing, same concept for most of us today. So
recommend literally going from your office to the garage or to the patio or something. Literally relocate your physical body. It helped me at least.
Scenery can be good for the mindset. I agree.
All right. I know managing tasks and everything like that's a daily grind. Welcome to recruiting. That's the life we chose. Any final comments or questions to task management? All good?
Yeah, one thing. Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go for it.
So one thing I just wanted to mention, and this was based on what Marvin had said the other day about, when you get a new requirement, where, who, and what. One of the things that I've always focused on is when we get a new requirement, always understand what your message is going to be. I always nail down the message for this role, this requirement, what the branding is, what the attraction is for a client, for a candidate, before I even think about where I'm going to get a candidate from. And what, I have to have that message down, because I don't want to start reaching out to people and not have the message straight. So to me, I think that is really important for a recruiter, especially who's assigned to that requirement. Get that message down first before you do anything else, and understand how you're going to approach people. So that's all I wanted to mention.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for the conversation. Another good conversation. A lot of chat going on there. I kind of lost track of the chat because it was moving too fast for me. But thank you very much. I'll let you all go.
Thanks so much.
I'll talk to you
Take
soon.
care. Stay well, everyone.
All right,
care.
you too. Take care.
Bye.